Hey gamers, we generally try to keep the podcast at a PG rating. However, this week's episode there is some colorful language. We have marked the episode as being explicit, so expect that. If you don't wish to hear this type of language, by all means skip the episode, I understand. And we will be back in 2 weeks with a normal game review, and we look forward to seeing you then. Hello gamers, welcome to Budget Arcade, a free-to-play gaming podcast to help you navigate through the growing realm of free-to-play games. I'm Scott.
I'm Jeff.
I am Elliot.
And welcome to episode number 58. Normally, we play a free-to-play game every other week and rate and review it, but this week we actually have a special guest on, and he is the voice for Leon Kennedy in the Resident Evil 2 remake, Nick Apostolides.
Perfect pronunciation. Hey, what's up, everybody? Thank you guys for having me on. This is going to be fun.
Thanks for coming. He got it his first try.
Not even a minute in. Don't say fun yet, Nick. Don't say fun yet.
Fun. I'm tempted. Fun.
You know.
What's happening, guys? How you doing? How you doing in this times of isolation and quarantine?
I'm one of the few people who's actually really enjoying the quarantine because there aren't that many times that you just can't do anything.
Mm-hmm.
And there's usually so many obligations to do on a weekend. And now, I can't do any of them. No one can invite me over to a party I don't want to go to.
No one knows where Jeff's kid is at.
Yeah, it's beautiful. You're a voice actor, obviously, and I don't know how this question is going to land. But as we've been podcasting, some of the podcast stuff I've done, like I've written skits and done these stupid commercials. Like I remember being younger and just sitting in front of a little webcam with my sister's stuffed animals and making skits and stuff. And as a voice actor, do you have any, think back to any time years ago where you could see, just sort of you doing what you do now, but as a child and not really knowing what you were doing, if that makes sense at all?
That's a good question. Yeah, I mean, as kids with my cousins, my brothers, my close friends, we were always just pretending out, and acting out scenes in some of our favorite movies. Of course, it was never a reality. I didn't even begin acting till I was about 25 or 26, and that's late for a lot of people. And I never thought about it as a viable career, and I somehow just fell into it and started with student films at that time. I left the corporate world. But yeah, I see that inspiration in my childhood. Even as a kid, I liked to watch movies alone because I really, really took them in. It wasn't really a social thing for me. I was fascinated by the cinematic experience. And so I think I've had that inside of me the whole time. I just didn't really know it.
So I was looking at some of your other work, and it seems that there's a fair amount of horror that you've done. Now, I know Resident Evil is classified as a horror as well. Is that a specific genre that you like working with, or was there a specific reason you went with those roles as opposed to something else?
That was just by chance. As kind of an actor, as you're fighting your way up, you don't really have a choice with what you do. I mean, you kind of sort of do, but the pickier and choosier you are, the less roles you're gonna get because you're kind of like a nobody. So maybe I booked a couple horrors. I've always appreciated the horror genre. I've been a diehard Resident Evil fan and Silent Hill fan for 20-something years. And so, yeah, I like to be scared. I like that anxiety. I've done a feature or two, a couple shorts that had horror written all over them. And it's just fun. And seldom am I impressed with even Hollywood movies that go big that scare me for horror, but I like when they do. There's only been a good handful in my life that I've really been impressed with.
So just to follow up, what are some of those titles?
So some of my favorite horrors, like I said, I'm very picky. Going way back to The Exorcist. I think that was really well done. I loved The Ring. the one that came out, the Americanized version.
Uh-huh.
Um, that was awesome. The original, The Conjuring, Sinister, Hereditary, A Quiet Place.
Oh,
Um,
Quiet Place, so good.
I can't
that was
even
one.
watch Hereditary.
That was it too scary, or you didn't like it?
Too scary. It was too scary for me.
I peed a little.
Well, that's the point. That's what horror is supposed to do.
Yeah.
You know, all these these jump scare movies, they don't do anything. Maybe some people like them, to each his own, but I like when a movie really messes with your head a little bit. And if you remember, like The Ring, you guys see that?
Yes.
Yeah.
That there was such like just disturbing imagery in that movie. They didn't have to rely on jump scares. You know, they had a few in there, a select few, but it was really just like the twisted idea behind it. That's what I appreciate more. That's why I like Silent Hill in that franchise, because that game was twisted. You know, like even the original one on PS1, the graphics were awful. The monsters were corny and cheesy, and it still freaked me out because of like the idea behind it. So that's why I like horror. Is it takes a lot, but when they get it right, they get it right.
Have you watched Haunting a Hill House? I thought that was really well done.
Yeah, that came out a long time ago, right? Quite a few years ago, decade
Yeah,
or so.
it was like 2 or 3 years ago now, I think.
Yeah, yeah, it was okay. It wasn't on my top like 10, but it was good.
Yeah, because I can say, like, as someone who doesn't do a lot of scary movies, that wasn't that scary, but I thought the storytelling was really good. So
You always hear like the constant rejection with like acting is a real big thing. Is it even worse for voice actors, or is it about the same? Would you say?
I'm a relatively new voice actor.
Okay.
I know it's super competitive. I think I had more luck in the independent circuit, more luck on camera with short films, features, and stuff like that, music videos, commercials. But yeah, with straight up VO, it's challenging. You're going up against some of the most talented people in the world.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of things that I don't know how true this is, obviously, but a lot of like big name actors doing voice work are taking away like voice work for voice work actors.
Yeah, that can be a reality. I think it's happening more and more often. Yeah, and I'm just training. Like I'm still kind of new to the whole scene, believe it or not. Resident Evil was my first straight up VO project where you're going to hear my voice quite a bit, and it's just like an avatar thrown over me. And so it's challenging, and I'm training now. Like I'm training, working with one-on-ones with people, taking classes, because I just know far less about the VO world than on camera.
For sure.
I mean, it's all acting, but they are different art forms. I feel like, because you have to tell the whole story with just your vocal cords. When you're a voice actor, when you're behind that mic, nobody sees you. On camera, you can say quite a bit with your eyes. You know what I mean? I'm a very nuanced and subtle actor. I can't show that behind the mic, so I need to really like almost relearn my techniques.
Now, in Resident Evil 2, you not only did the voice acting, but you also did the motion capture. That's correct, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. I'm curious, did they have you record the motion capture separately from doing the voice acting, or did they do it at the same time?
Both. If you watch the cinematic breakaways, all those scenes, that was recorded as in what they call full performance capture. So we spoke the lines and did the body movements and acted out the scenes all together. And then when you're in game controlling the character, that was all straight up VO, just in a booth behind a mic.
So when you play the game, do you feel like more invested in the character because it's your own voice coming out? Like I haven't played that game specifically, but you that's a playable character in the game?
What, Leon?
Yeah.
He's the main character. Yeah.
See, I don't know Resident Evil, but so when you're playing
you gotta play
it. Well, I may. But when you're playing as essentially yourself in the game now.
Is it a mind trip? That's what you're saying. I've almost like learned to just ignore it. Like I don't play it for that reason. I play it because it's a Resident Evil game and I'm a huge fan. So I don't care who voiced it. Yeah, it's cool. Like it's the biggest honor of my life to be inside of it. But I don't love the game for that reason. I would have loved this game regardless. You know.
What kind of things do you're going in to try to get an audition for like a role? How do you put together like a portfolio or like a resume? How do you even just get in the door usually?
It's not easy, especially with video games. You got to know. It's like kind of like relationship based. Who you know. They put this one online. They seldom ever cast open to like the public for these things, and they did for this one. Yeah, absolutely. You need a resume. They need to know that you've acted before. You know what you're doing. And as far as portfolio goes, it's called a demo reel. You know, it's like a 2-minute commercial of you basically highlighting the skills that they need for a particular project. So
Mhm.
if it's an action project, you don't want to send them like a comedy reel or like you doing commercials. That's not going to help you. Um, you want to send them pointed materials of what they're looking for. So for Resident Evil, I had a good audition, but what backed me up big time was my materials, that like my experience I built over the years with all my action films. So they knew I could do the action, they knew I could do the drama. I reinforced it with 2 solid auditions, and you get the role. But it's challenging. There's a lot of competition out there, and it requires a lot of luck too. They must have got probably maybe 800 submissions for Leon, and they only chose to audition about 50 of them. So you
Jeez.
got to make that initial cut, and then you got to beat out the other people. So it's like it's a lot of luck, a lot of skill. You know, it's a really, you got to be half insane to be in this industry. I'll say that. You got to
So
be willing to
what
lose your
you're
mind a little bit.
saying is acting is a battle royale.
Uh, More or less. But you know what? If you really like sink your teeth in, if you do the work and pay your dues, I believe everyone can work out here in LA. Like you can fit somewhere, but you have to want it for the right reasons and you have to deserve it, because there's a lot of people trying to do exactly what we're doing out here.
How many hours do you think you spent as Leon, like grunting and yipping and laughing and stuff like that?
I'd say altogether probably maybe like 16 hours doing all like the VO stuff. The mocap was a lot longer. That was a couple weeks. But you got to imagine, like, you have to record in voiceover every possible reaction or interaction, with all his lines with the characters, all the grunts, the deaths, the efforts, and all that stuff. And then there's different levels of each one, different versions, and then they just throw it all in an algorithm. And you'll just hear me utter out like a bunch of random lines throughout the game, depending on the situation. So it's kind of funny, like, to see which ones they used.
And so when they're getting grunts, they're like, "Okay, you've been shot in the shoulder now. Give me that." And you'd have to.
Yeah, exactly. Something like that. And you just do a million different versions. Yeah, like the curse words were funny. Like we would do like 10 different curse words, and then you do like 3 different versions of each one. So like if it was you'd say one to yourself and you'd be like, Jesus Christ. And then you say one kind of out loud to somebody in the room, be like, Jesus Christ. And then, someone's chasing you, you're about to die, and I'm not going to yell and blow out the mic, but it's like, Jesus Christ. So you got to give it like everything, because they just didn't know what they wanted to use.
Hmm.
Right. Well, I got another one. You're a big Resident Evil guy, but what would be your like next dream franchise to work on? Would you think?
I would love to do a Silent Hill, like a Castlevania game, a Mega Man kind of Capcom game. Shit, there's a lot of games. Military, definitely. Maybe the next Call of Duty, I would die to be in something like that. Any kind of Tom Clancy games, like a Rainbow Six, I would like to voice. Like, it'd be really cool.
Well, so other than video games, are there like, do you want to branch out to like shows or movies or anything like that,
Oh,
or is like video games like your angle that you really want to like focus in
well,
on?
I was pursuing film hard for good like 10 years, and I still am. It's just that's a very different ball game out here in LA. I could work in independent film forever. It doesn't pay a lot. It's hard to sustain a career with it. But movies is why I started, because like I said, when I was a
Okay.
kid, watching movies like Indiana Jones and Die Hard and Rocky, all those movies inspired me so much, and I wanted to be that. And so in the independent film world, the shorts and everything, like I started playing anti-heroes, and I was playing these characters who I like emulated. And I did a good amount of work here in LA. It's just that when I realized that acting in video games can be a viable career path at this point, and it can be sustainable for like 15, 20 years, I shifted gears, and I'm really pursuing mocap hard right now because mocap is blowing up.
That's gotta seem crazy to like put on a suit like that.
Oh, you
Just
look beyond it. Like
go at
it's
it.
not about the suit
Do ya?
anymore. It's about being inside of a video game forever. It's like that's like another dimension to me, because growing up, when I was playing these games, I always like when I was playing like Mega Man when I was just a kid, I would always imagine like me being Mega Man. And now that that's a possibility and you can get paid good money for it, it's like, oh my God, why would you not do this? Like, you guys are gamers, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
just imagine that if you could help create one of your favorite games in your favorite franchise. It's like it's a dream come true. When Capcom hired me, I've been playing Capcom games for 30 years, guys. Like 3 legit decades. I started with Mega Man, and to work for that company is mind blowing to me.
Yeah, no doubt.
Before we started recording, you were talking about how you've been playing the new Warzone. What kind of games are your kind of go-to games to play?
Well, definitely like survival horror, anything like that, zombie games. I love shooting games of all kinds. I like third person, like so Tom Clancy does a lot of third person, but then you get into like Rainbow Six, games like that. Of course, Call of Duty now. Anything shooting is fun. I can appreciate all kinds of games, to be honest. I'm a huge fan of Rocket League right now. One of my favorite games growing up was Final Fantasy VII, Twisted Metal, like all the old titles. I'm going back now and playing a lot of the older Resident Evil franchise, a lot of the originals again. So a lot of games. Castlevania was one of my favorite franchises when I was a kid on the Nintendo. So Castlevania, big fan there. All kinds.
Kind of more podcast related, a lot of people use podcasts to get their name out, whether like they're actors or comedians in LA, and you could find a million podcasts. But also out there are the audio dramas. Is that something you've auditioned for?
I haven't got there yet. I'm still new in the VO world, and right now I'm on a travel show, like a building documentary show. I've been doing it for a year and a half, and we've been all over the world to like 17 different countries. And that travel schedule is keeping me very busy, and it's hard for me to balance my efforts in the VO world in mocap and also that because I kind of belong to them when I sign on for a season. Right now we're in season 2, about halfway done, and so I think once that opportunity, like if it ends one day, I'm gonna go hard into VO, and I am training in my free time. I'm still auditioning for video games. I just sent in a big audition for a mocap project for a new game. So I'm still doing it. It's just like it's not as fast as I want to see the progress,
Yeah, the only thing my last one was, what were some questions? Are there any questions that like we should have asked you that we haven't, that you're like dying for us to ask you? Like, this is what I want to say about this that you haven't asked.
It's hard to say at this point. I've done a lot of interviews. I've been asked a lot of good questions. I mean, I would say if you just want to spit out anything, I'm happy to talk about just about anything. Sorry, my brain doesn't really work like that. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. I just want to make sure they're not like anything big we're missing out on.
I'm just here to shoot. I'm just here to shoot
about.
shit. So whatever you guys feel like talking about, it's all good.
We got any crazy mocap stories or anything?
I would just say it's fun. I mean, mocap stories. See, like these questions, I wish I had in advance because sometimes it takes me a second to think about them. It's not that I don't have the stories; it's just that there's so much has happened in the past 2 years. It's hard for me to, because we started filming Resident Evil 2 back in 2016, so we're talking almost 4 years. Whole process. I'm doing military stunts on a new game, and that is crazy fun because I get to just get blown up and like chewed to bits and a million deaths. And I gotta say, like military, any kind of stunts in video games, when you're on that day as a stunt guy, you get the crap kicked out of you. Like it is a full body workout. You wake up the next day, you can't even like move your neck. It's like you really gotta stay agile and limber for this stuff because it's real. And when you play those games, like when you kill someone, it's rewarding and you're like, yeah, that was fucking awesome. And that's because they probably mocap like some guy getting blown up.
Do you like refrain from talking the day before, like a big recording?
No, not really. I just kind of go about my business.
Yeah.
I mean, I make sure that I don't like scream, sing in the car going to the session because then I'll blow out my voice. But No, you just kind of like nothing crazy special. Um, I would say
Like, is your
no,
voice
nothing
insured?
like that.
Okay. I didn't know. I
Yes.
didn't know if it was a thing. I mean, if that's
No,
your
I'm not
job,
like
you know, I
Mariah
can
Carey
see.
or anything like that.
Be afraid to lose my
No, I
voice.
mean they could just remain flexible and they can spread out and change like recording days and stuff like that. It's not a big deal. And the only really strenuous days were the ones when you're doing all the deaths. You know, when you're screaming and yelling and Leon gets blown up by a grenade or he catches on fire or Mr. X chokes him out. Like those are the ones like you leave that booth and you're like, "Oh my god," you could barely talk the next day. But that's just because again, I'm not a huge like experienced pro VO person who has probably done this for like 10 years and they know how to protect their voice. This is the stuff that I'm learning slowly.
As a Resident Evil fan, how deep into the Resident Evil rabbit hole have you gone?
How deep, like before, like the past 20 years?
Yeah, like I've read most of the novels personally, and I've played almost all the games. I haven't touched on every single one of them, but I've gone pretty deep into it. I know you've done some cosplay as well, but have you done any of the how many of the games have you played, and have you read any
I've
of the
never read
books?
the books. I'm very, very familiar with like the Resident Evil universe. I have probably played, I would say probably like 11 of their games at this point. Like maybe 11 games. So yeah, like it's always been my favorites. And I've played some of those titles like 1,000 times. So yeah, very familiar. And when like I've been fabricating and crafting all my life, and so when I started to go to conventions to represent Capcom, I saw how passionate the cosplay culture really is, and I had no idea. I know people did like, they dressed up and everything, but some people go nuts for it. The fans go nuts, and I was like, oh, this is a good opportunity because I had the know-how. Like I'm able to do it, so I created my cosplay from scratch with real police and military gear, piece by piece, and it took me like 2 months to get it together and craft it and sew it together. And so for me, it was a no-brainer to when I show up to conventions now, I'll cosplay as the character because fans go nuts. And as a fan myself, I would appreciate that if I was to show up. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
definitely, I try to do as much fan reach out as possible because I'm just a fellow fan who got lucky, and that's 100% the truth.
I'm going to do one thing real quick. I want to tell you the story of why I've never been into Resident Evil, because there's a very
Let's hear
real reason. We got our PlayStation for Thanksgiving, and if we played it, and I can't remember if it was Christmas or the following spring. Scott, my fellow co-host here, I've known him since I was 11, and my brother were playing Resident Evil 1 like crazy, and we only had one PlayStation, and I wanted to play WrestleMania the arcade game, and I couldn't do it because these two idiots were on the game Resident Evil for hours. So that's why I don't like the game series,
I see.
and that's why I haven't played
I
it.
get it. I get it. You have,
I butt her.
yeah, you got
That's
it.
why.
You got it in
We
for the
scarred him for
series.
life.
I get it. Well, that makes sense. It's like a psychological thing.
Yeah, hurt my feelings.
Well, I gotta say, if you start,
If I apologize, Jeff, will you start playing it?
Nope.
What if I get your brother to apologize?
No. Because I'll know you don't mean it.
well, I think you'd like them.
Oh, jeez. Did you ever play the Fatal Frame
No,
game?
there's a lot of horror games that I have not played that I want to.
That is probably the scariest horror game I have ever played in my life. Like, buddy of mine had that game, and he forced me to play it because he was too scared to play it.
I remember that. You came over to my house and played that. Was that Raph?
Yeah, it was Raphael. He was like,
Yeah.
He wanted to watch the game being played, but he was too afraid to play it himself. So he like forced me to play it, and I'm like, this is scary as crap.
That's the second time someone has told me to play it, and I definitely want to. Like anything that's really, really scary and unsettling, I want to play it.
Yeah, I wonder if it's on backwards compatibility for the Xbox, because it was on the original Xbox that I remember. It might have been on PlayStation 1 as well,
Yeah, I'm not sure.
but I know
I think
for sure
might
it was
even
on
be
Xbox.
PC though.
Probably. But yeah, that was a really creepy game.
I'm down. Maybe I'll look it up. Isn't like aren't there big sales right now for because like everyone's home? I think game
Oh yeah,
sales are just
everything's on sale right now.
skyrocketing right now.
So speaking of fans, where can fans find you?
But you can find me on Twitter. It's just NIK_Apostolides, APOSTOLIDES. Instagram.
We'll
Yeah.
put that in the show notes
Yeah, please
too.
do. And then Instagram is just Nick_APOS. Those are the best ways to find me. I post most of my like modern work and stuff. Starting to post like my artwork on Instagram and Twitter too. It's partially what I'm doing in my downtime.
You're not on the TikTok
Not on TikTok,
yet?
no.
He's an old man like us.
Yeah,
God.
I mean, like there's gonna be like a million things that come out, so I'm just gonna kind of focus on what I can focus on right now, like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. That's about all I can handle.
I think you would blow up on TikTok in your Resident Evil cosplays. I know there's a guy on there who's cosplays Hunk, and his cosplay looks like legit.
Well, I don't know. I mean, there's a million things I could do, and yeah, I could, but
Don't do TikTok. You're fine. You're good.
yeah, I don't
You're
need.
fine. No.
I don't need to
It's
get.
good to
famous
hear
on
that
TikTok
you
or
don't.
something.
No, you don't need those people at all. What do you mean those people? We all know what I mean by those people.
Elliot's people.
No, not my people. My wife's people for sure. Not mine though.
She's still hooked on it.
Oh my gosh, it's terrible. Now that we're just sitting at home,
Passes the time away.
yeah. They
Into
pass her
oblivion.
data right on to other people.
Well, we want to thank you for coming on
Yeah,
the show,
thank you
Nick.
very much, guys. I really appreciate the interest. It's always fun to hang out, and you know, in these times, I think people are going to be doing this a lot more often now. I think the Discord
Yeah, I think
channels
you're right,
have
yeah.
been like really jammed up lately, like literally, because everyone's doing it now, and so many people are out of work, unfortunately. But you know, it's just what we got to get through right now. So everybody, stay safe.
Well, and if you want to play any Warzone with us, just hit us all up. We're probably still going to be playing for the next
All
couple
right,
of weeks
guys.
as well.
All right, well, thank you. You take care, and once again, thank you for the interest. You guys have a good night.
I want to thank everybody for joining us. Wherever you listen, please leave a favorable review, and don't forget to subscribe.
You can find us on Facebook.com/Budget Arcade. We're on Twitter and Instagram at Budget Arcade. Don't forget to check out the website, www.budgetarcade.com.
You can also join our Discord from the website or also our show notes. We do have a Patreon. You can support the show there if you'd like. It's patreon.com/Budget Arcade, and game on. Hey everyone, I forgot to add it to this week's episode, but the game that we're going to be playing next is going to be Gwent, the Witcher card game.